Hey guys, Board now back with you for another new television review, and this is going to be my review of episode 1 of the first season of Locke and Key, the new Netflix show based on the comic book by Joe Hill. And the first episode is called Welcome to Matheson, which is the name of the town, the very Stephen King-esque town, the setting of the main bulk of the show, I'm assuming. So the plot is sort of pretty straightforward. You have a family who move to this new town, and they've been left a mansion by relatives, but there's dark secrets and powers behind the mansion, and they got hold of the keys to the place because because their relatives were killed off. We sort of see that at the beginning. You get this very dramatic scene where one of them finds out the other has died, and then you get this supernatural scene where he has this key and he basically explodes along with its house. So they left the mansion, and you get a mother with her 3 children, as it is, 2 boys and one girl, one teenage girl. So part of the first episode is they're moving in, they're settling in. The 2 teenagers both go to this boarding school, and there's a lot of stigma attached, or a reputation, because of what happened to their parents or their father, and the past to do with the house. And at the same time, the young boy, Brody his name is, starts exploring the house, and he starts talking to this mysterious woman who's basically down a well. Her name's Echo, and she starts revealing to him that there are keys around the house, and if you find one of these mysterious keys, there's a power attached to it. So it gets this sense of this childlike wonder, him, searching around for these keys. And at first it seems like, oh, this is amazing, this is all great. So he finds a key, for example, where the power is, then he can transport anywhere he wants with that key, or he can get anything. So it transports to the ice cream parlour, and he can have ice cream with the key. But along the way, Brody, the boy, starts finding out that there's catches, and that not everything is as straightforward or as simple as it seems. And over time, you're going to start getting reveals and dark secrets popping up. So that is basically the setup. And this episode didn't really do much for me at all. It's not terrible, it's watchable, but I just thought it was very bland, very middle of the road, kind of dull, not a lot of life to it, because I think it has this very kind of playful, magical feel when they enter the town. As I said, it looks like a classic Stephen King type setting. And I think the look of the show is maybe the best thing about it. It does have a nice sort of look to it, the houses and the overall town. And the direction is fine, but it does have this feel of this magical type show, which is trying to appeal to teenagers or a younger audience. And I think the problem with that is then it doesn't really go far enough. It's caught between this awkward sort of place where it's kind of family friendly, and it wants to have this sense of wonder and magic, but it never goes far enough or at least it didn't in this episode. I suppose once we get into the mystery more and the secrets and stuff, I think that stuff might come out more. This is obviously a setup episode. but yeah, the so far it just lacks a spark. I think the characters are mostly very bland, very ordinary. I think there's a lot of forced drama. There's a lot of melodrama. There's a scene where with a flashback where the mother, who people might recognise the actress out of Scandal. I think she's fine in this. I think she's maybe miscast, but I'm not too sure. But depends where the character goes. But she's fine. I think the adult actors are probably better than the children actors or the younger actors. But there's a scene where you have a flashback to her past and this kind of dark secret where her partner at the time, who you see her painting, and then one of his students comes in, and there's he has a gun and he holds them up, he shoots at her, he ends up, I'm assuming, shooting him. So this is alluded to throughout the episode, and the kid's father was killed. And actually that comes up again at the end of the episode, because we see the character of Echo, who's the character Brody's been talking to down the well, go and visit this kid, or this young adult in prison, because he's obviously he's shot their father in the past. But just that flashback was kind of cheesy, a bit on the nose. I think there's musical cues that are just a bit over the top. And I think that's the thing. A lot of it just feels forced and contrived and sort of on the nose. But its worst crime is that it's just a bit boring. It's just a bit bland and dull. Middle of the road is probably a good word for it. And there is one really bad performance, which is the youngest kid, as I said, the Brody character. He's very annoying. He's very molten-mouth and just kind of OTT, and just the actor's really bad. He can barely manage like a convincing sort of smile, or like just a laugh, or anything, and not convincing when he looks mad. Just very, very sort of plain, and he's annoying as well. That's the trouble. They needed to tone his character down. But casting kids probably one of the hardest things, and he's really, really bad and annoying to make it worse. At least, I mean, if he wasn't annoying, if he just faded into the background, or if he wasn't so heavy with the dialogue, then I think you could sort of get away with the actor not being great. But I think how hyper he is just sort of makes it worse. As I said, the mother is fine. I think the actress is fine, although I didn't really buy into her motivations for wanting to buy the house, because when she's speaking to this character Duncan, who's like their uncle, the children's uncle, he's like, well, there's some bad stuff going on in this house, or a bad history. Why would you want to stay here? And she's kind of like saying, well, I want a challenge. I want the kids to settle down. And I mean, obviously that's the setup. They have to be there for the premise, but you're not convinced really of her reasons, her motivations. And I think a worse problem is that I didn't believe in the family dynamic. They didn't feel like that realistic a family. I mean, that might improve over time, but I think obviously for the first episode to really grab me, that has to be important. Obviously, the mother seems to have her issues. She seems to very much be distracted from the children, which doesn't help. But yeah, I thought the family dynamic wasn't really coming across for me. And so far, the stuff at the boarding school isn't very interesting. I mean, there's a conversation between two girls where they're kind of like, well, there's this party, and one of them's like, well, we should invite the Locke girl, after what happened, and the other one's kind of the more shallow one, kind of saying, well, that would kill the vibe, and obviously the original girl standing up for it. But so far you're getting these very stereotypical, cut and dry sort of characters. So at the moment it's the I try and remember the girl's name actually. No, it's gone, folks. I'm sorry. I mean, I've got it written down somewhere. It's like, let's see if I can. No, I can't find it so far. Oh, Kinsey. Okay, Kinsey. Yeah, she's kind of like she's the more maybe moody, angst-ridden one, but she's also the more grounded, maybe dependable one, if you like. And so she doesn't go to the party, but at the same time, with these two girls at the boarding school, there's also a sense that one of them's the more dependable one. And I think at the moment the drama between the teens just feels really predictable, because the Tyler, his name is, the oldest son, he goes to this party, the one which obviously Kinsey wasn't invited to. He goes to this party, and the two girls are there. And the one who's the more, grounded one, she just goes off home. Says, I've got to study and stuff. And the other, the more shallow one, stays, starts flirting with Tyler, and they basically hook up, and they're sort of getting down to it. They're about to sleep together, and then like the kid, the guy who shot their father, he appears visually to Tyler, and he freaks out. Obviously, he says, sorry, I can't do this, and then leaves her. And I mean, obviously that's going to be like built on later, but the problem is, I mean, and I could be wrong, but it seems pretty obvious then he's gonna end up going out with the other girl, and it's not gonna, he's obviously gonna see, yeah, she's more to me, she's more grounded, she's a good egg. It just seems to be moving in that predictable sort of way where she goes home from the party, he hooks up with the shallow one, but he doesn't quite go through with it, and then later he's probably going to hook up with the other one, because she's painted as the good sort of egg. And I mean, speaking of that sort of thing, the love interest, which is set up straight away, so you have this character who works in the ice cream parlour, and so he meets Kinsey actually in the first scene, because for some reason they stop off as they're driving into town, and I think she's kind of asking for directions or something like this, and immediately there's this thing, although she's quite standoff with him actually, this guy, but this guy, his dialogue and stuff is so on the nose. He looks like the missing like brother from the Jackson 5, or like ex-footballer Jermaine Genius. And I know a lot of you American viewers might not get that reference, but yeah, and they really hit it over your head with the stuff about him being like this hardcore nerdy horror guy. So Tom Savini gets mentioned. They're watching Day of the Dead at one point. He's in like a cosplay group. But he's so obviously set up as the love interest. And again, another really stereotypical character. And just nothing subtle, the fact that he's meant to be this horror nerd, and they just hit you with it. And it just ends up being unbelievable and not very interesting. So for me, it's a forgettable first episode, except for the ending. The ending is easily the highlight, which is where we sort of see an example of Echo tricking Brody, and that is when she promises him then there's a key in the house where he can see his dead dad. And he finds the key, and it turns out then, because Brody calls the mother into the room, because he's obviously thinking, well, if I can get dad, here, then obviously she can see him as well and say goodbye. But it's a trick, and she gets sucked into like this mirror. She sees herself in the mirror, but it's kind of like not acting like her essentially. But then she gets sucked in, and it's this hall of mirrors type thing with all these multiple versions of her, and she's obviously screaming and freaking out and is in danger. Sorry. And eventually they have to get her out. Tyler gets her out, but she's in real danger. And the trick is then Echo, it's a loophole because she says yes, and many dead people have been in that mirror. So that's kind of the loophole, the trick. Then he can't literally see his dad from that key. But it's the highlight of the episode. Visually it's a really good scene, and it's an effective moment. It sort of brought things to life. It's quite suspenseful, even though you suspect the mother. It's episode 1, so you kind of know she's gonna get out alive, but she's saved. But that changes the game, because they now don't know that as a family then there's something supernatural going on in this house. And as I said, the episode ends with Echo visiting the guy who murdered the father in prison, so she's obviously gonna try something with him. But there you have it, episode 1. Not to my liking, but I'll stick with it at least for another episode, maybe 2. I'll see how it goes, but it's the setup episode. I mean, once we get into the mystery and the supernatural stuff, it might get more interesting, but not a great first episode for me. Let me know your thoughts of Locke and Key episode 1 in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you're new. You can also ding the bell on YouTube, which gives you notifications when my videos go up. Most of the shows I do, I tend to put in playlists, so you can check out all episode reviews in the playlist. See how I go with this one, because I might not stay with it, but maybe I'll put it in the playlist if I stick with it. And get me up on Twitter. I'll put the link in the description. But thanks for listening, and more TV reviews coming soon. Goodbye.